Alright, let's talk a little bit about these two guitars. They look almost identical. They are two of my favorite guitars. Kind of like my little wacky, as they say. Very, very nice high-end guitars. Look at the back of this thing, bad boy. And of course, the Gibson. So, after you've owned a guitar for a while, I think it's probably when you should do a demo of this. So, I've owned this Eastman T-185MX for quite some time. It is by far one of my favorite guitars. I'll talk a little bit about why I bought this guitar, at least initially. And this is a little bit more recent, but it's not that new, which is a Gibson ES 339. By all accounts, and when I did a quick review of this when I first got this one, I talked about the fact that I thought that kind of like a little bit sanity check. I felt like I had two of the same guitars. They are not the same guitars. I don't know how the sound comes across on the video itself, but I wanted to talk about a little bit about feel, which is hard to kind of convey, but it was not intended to be an all-out spec war as far as that. So they're both taking off of the spin of a 335 Gibson ES 335, and that is a great guitar. I love ES 335. I've never owned a 335. I've played them a couple of times, and these are basically what you'd call a shrunken down version of them. But there's a lot of dissimilarities between the two of them. A lot of it has to do with the woods. So first of all, in terms of size wise, this thing I believe is 14 inches at the lower depth. So that's one of the big differences. I think an ES 335 is 16 inches. So if you look at this thing, which is the Eastman T-185MX, it is 15 inches at the lower bow. So it is slightly bigger than the 339, but slightly smaller than the 16-inch 335. So that's one of the first tonal differences from that. Another tonal difference is the actual woods that these things are composed of. So the Eastman is actually made of higher quality wood than I would say the Gibson ES339. It's kind of like a more refined kind of guitar. So the top of the Eastman is carved maple top, whereas the Gibson 339 tends to be laminated, think maple or poplar. So that's the first thing. And also too on the Eastman, the back and sides are solid and it's mahogany, whereas here I believe it's also laminated back and sides, and I think that's mahogany as well. So let's talk about the feel of the guitars themselves. One of the reasons I love this guitar is the neck. The neck is 1 3/4. And if you're playing a lot of fingerstyle guitars, I tend to like at least 1 3/4 neck, just in terms of I like playing with my fingers. And I like the Gibson scale too, as far as like the neck. It's 1 5/8, so they're pretty close as far as that's concerned. Another principal difference is the fretboard. The fretboard on the Eastman is ebony, whereas the fretboard on the Gibson ES339 is rosewood. So that's a big factor in terms of the tones that you get that may or may not be conveyed in this video. The last thing, which is something anybody can change regardless of what you're playing, are the pickups. The Eastman that I have here came with Seymour Duncan 59s on that, which are just absolutely gorgeous sounding. And you can't beat this thing, which is the 57 Classic, right? I said last, I forgot one main point, is that this has a center block to prevent feedback. And this has a slight, I wouldn't even call it a semi-hollow. This is really more of an arch top, to be honest with you. It's got a little bit of a block right at the top, but it's basically a pure hollow body, more like a casino or things of that nature. So anyway, let's talk about the sound. Like, which one do you want? If I had to put a gun in my head, or if I have a gun were put in my hand and said, which one are you going to take? Man, it's really hard. I think they are very different. I think the Eastman actually lends itself a little bit more to fingerstyle playing. I like the size of the neck. And there's a certain refinedness in it. It's almost like a wine that has been aged really well. It's almost like if you like the finer things in life, you're actually going to like this Eastman. It just feels good. There's just air quality in that. Don't get me wrong, not to say that the Gibson is shabby. This feels really good. It feels classic. It's a classic sound out of that. But the build quality on the Eastman is definitely better. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And this is a good Gibson. So this is not one of them shoddy Gibsons with quality control issues and things of that nature. So I would say the biggest difference is in the feel. As far as the sound, I think I can replicate the sound that I want to hear in either of these guitars. Price point wise, this is more expensive, I think, if you get it new. But the Eastman is not inexpensive. I hate the word cheap. It's not inexpensive. So anyway, there you have it. This is my review of it. Now that I've had them for a while, had the Eastman for a couple of years, this for a couple of months, I believe. They're still part of my stable. They're very different. It's not an either or kind of thing. It depends upon what I'm feeling that day. So I cop out answer, but at the end of the day, they're two quality instruments that, hey, You know, if you get a chance to pick one up, pick one up. All right, then. Let's go practice, practice, practice some more. All right. Thank you so much. Bye now.